Welcome back to the second installment in our fourth-part series on myth-busting DevOps, where we discuss truths that will be true eventually, but are not yet true, and in fact are actively misleading as you are starting to adopt the DevOps culture. In our prior installment, we looked at quality and the myth that if we can simply add automated testing and increase our release cadence, we will improve quality. Now, we're going to build on that with the next myth, that we will fail fast and recover quickly. You will hear the fail fast mantra everywhere in the DevOps community. And they mean it both for system and performance sort of issues, but also, more importantly, for customer issues. Here, they're not talking about correctness bugs. That was the prior myth. Here they're talking about fitness to purpose. I created what I meant to create, and my customers just don't like it. And so they're trying to fail quickly in the marketplace, get something out, and see what the customers want. They want to do A/B testing to figure out market fit. It sounds great. The problem is it doesn't work in a typical legacy environment or any pre-DevOps world. The problem is if you have bugs on one side of your A/B test and not the other, that will corrupt your data. And even small bugs will do it. And you don't know most of the time that you have a bug. This means that the data you're using to guide your company is wrong. Sometimes, but you don't know when. So you can trust it, except you can't. The decisions you make are valid, except when they aren't. And this is no way to run a business. Recovering quickly doesn't work if the new code has bugs. You not only are going to get bad data, but even the customers that you annoy with a problem, you can't fix that problem quickly if you're continuing to have correctness bugs. So this whole myth of fail fast depends on the team successfully shipping code every time without bugs, such that they can learn about the things they don't know. And that's not true for most teams. The journey forward to get to that place in DevOps is to continue from the last myth on our efforts to shift from finding and fixing bugs towards preventing them. But we need to add one more thing. We need to be even less tolerant of bugs. We need to start fixing all the cosmetic bugs too. Right. Yeah, cosmetic bugs. We can't afford to fix them. And even if we could afford to fix them, there's no point. They don't deliver much value. This is a common argument. And I'm going to address the two sides, affordability and value. So first, affordability. It is true. Most pre-DevOps companies cannot afford to fix cosmetic bugs. They simply have so many bugs that they can't fix them all. That was, in fact, the point of the whole first myth bust. You need to get to the point where you are no longer having all those important to fix bugs. Then you can afford to start fixing the cosmetic ones. So, yes, currently you can't afford it. See the first talk to figure out how you can get to the point where you will be able to afford cosmetic bugs. But then there's still the question of, is it valuable? Well, the problem is cosmetic bugs are the ones most likely to screw up your A/B test. A/B tests usually give results that differ only by 3, 4, maybe as much as 5% between the winner and the loser case. Cosmetic bugs can easily cause a greater shift in behavior than that. If you're trying to tell whether your order flow works right and you have this little cosmetic bug that causes some browsers to put the order button off the screen, then suddenly on your A/B test, 10% of your users, the ones using that browser, no longer have an order button. Their behavior is entirely different. And it completely throws off your results. So when you're using your code to guide what you should do, you can't afford to have even little cosmetic bugs. Let's look at how we can prevent those. So the first thing, again, is to address the sources of bugs. This was the content of the whole first talk. We need to get to a prevention mindset. We have to get out of finding and fixing and into preventing defects, finding the hazards, fixing the hazards, and reducing all the future bugs. That's what safeguarding, devs refactoring the most scary code, increasing refactoring discipline, and creating a safety culture are all about. So once we've done that, then the next step. Well, once we've done that first thing, then any bug that gets to a dev team results not just in fixing that bug, but preventing all bugs like that in the future. Which means that any bug we allow dev to work on decreases the size of the incoming flow of new bugs, the number of new bugs that arrive every day or every month. So our triage process that used to exist in the older world to protect the dev team is now an obstacle. In the past, the dev team could only support fixing a certain number of bugs per week. They could only fix at a certain rate. So we needed to focus their efforts on the most important bugs. Now, they still fix at that rate, but they prevent new ones from coming in. So we want to give them the bugs that are going to prevent the bugs that are causing us problems. So overall, over time, our triage process starts focusing teams on bugs. These are the next ones that we want to eliminate and never see again. And that triage process thus becomes a less and less sensitive filter until eventually every bug goes direct to a dev team and there is no triage at all. The third big step is to look at the kinds of bugs that remain. And the biggest remaining source are miscommunications between the customers and the developers. And it's easy to see why. If we look at a traditional company, the final user of the software communicates their problems to internal help desk at their company, who then communicates summaries of that to their executives. Those executives, the next time that the sales contract comes up for renewal, communicate it to the salespeople of your company, who communicate it to the executives and managers, who communicate it down the management chain to the developers through the triage process and other such, to identify the features that we will work on, and then we work on those features. Some teams will shortcut this by 2-3 hops, but the typical information flow still goes through 5 or more people between the person who has the problem and knows what they want and the person who can do something about it. That's the biggest remaining hazard. Every hop loses information. We need to get those customers closer to the developers. And now that we've eliminated all the defects, we can actually use A/B testing as one of our tools to do just that. But to enable this requires a significant shift in the information flows within your company. It will no longer be the case that the most informed person about your customer need is the salesperson or the tech support person. Often the developer will know even more about your customer than the salesperson will. Tech support people will still know where all the bodies are buried. That's their job. But the goal is by getting the developers really, really close to that information, we need them to start making those choices. And that will shift how you make the decisions about what to work on in order to focus on the right things for your customers. The key concept to understand here is that you can't afford even affordable bugs. There is no such thing. So, as a developer, what you can do. First thing is start narrowing your definition of what is an acceptable bug. Right now, you have a definition. It is as broad. You will allow anything to be a bug up until you get flooded. As you work down your ability, as you work down the rate of incoming bugs, you will be able to broaden and broaden that definition. You'll be able to narrow and narrow the things that are acceptable. Right? Your job is to get to the point where no bug is acceptable to you. It will take time. As a leader, you want to do sort of the inverse. Broaden the definition of safety. Remember, in the prior thing, we had you create a safety culture where you're actively going out there and looking at the hazards. But there we were focused on the hazards that caused a developer to make a correctness issue. They were finding code hazards. They were finding some communication issues. They were finding process issues. Now you want them to look more broadly. You want them to look at what causes customers to be in uncomfortable situations, unsafe situations. What causes a user of our software to look bad in front of their manager? What causes sales to lose sales? What causes our support team to stay up answering call after call? Right? And every developer, every manager, every part of the company needs to look at these as safety issues and start preventing the hazards inherent in them. Thank you for listening to this conversation. We've talked about one of the 4 DevOps myths, truths that are not yet true for you. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and listen to the rest of the playlist so that we can help you build a roadmap that will take you from your current state to the point where DevOps and these myths become true for you.